We'll go ahead and call the Budget Committee to order. We do have minutes from May the 6th.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any questions or concerns about the minutes? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any not approving? Okay, at this point in time, I'm just going to turn it over to Aaron and allow him to direct traffic.
All right. You have a revised needs list in front of you. I guess the first thing I should do is thank everybody who was scheduled to be here tomorrow night for making time to be here tonight. And I had a few of those people request to go toward the front because they had other commitments expecting to be here tomorrow instead of tonight. So with that said, I think I've got Quentin up first. Quentin, you want to come talk, or do you want me to talk, or what do you want to do?
You can talk, and then they can ask some questions, or however
Okay.
you want to do it.
In the very back of your list, you'll have Fund 124, very last page. They're requesting on the Ag Center, $15,000 more for fuel, $50,000 for gravel. The paving and the we've been doing that $100,000 in paving the last 3 or 4 years out of capital projects, out of Fund 189. So if it's the will of the committee, that can continue coming out of that line. $5,000 additional in maintenance and repair equipment, and $15,000 for a vehicle, although I'm a little, I've confused myself with the description. It can't be, that can't be right, it can't be sewer repairs, or can it, Quentin?
The vehicle,
Right, 15,000 is a
to me,
vehicle.
I think, Tom and them, I've got a line item in there, it's got vehicles on it, but it ain't got but like $9,000, so
Okay,
the committee thought that if I was gonna be able to buy a vehicle, I was gonna have to add $15,000 to it.
gotcha. Gotcha, my apologies for the description there. It is a vehicle. In the Expo Center, if you want to go ahead and consider both those at the same time, they're asking for an additional $7,500 in utilities. Those recurring, by the way. The needs on the left, I know y'all are aware of this already, but the needs on the left are recurring. The needs on the right are non-recurring. $10,000 in other contracted services for electronic signage, I think both inside and outside the Expo Center. I was trying to find Gail real quick to shake her head, yes or no? Yes. Automatic door opener, $15,000. Ductwork, where they have a rather noisy system over there, $5,000, and communication equipment of $10,000. So that's the whole needs list for the Ag and Expo Center both.
Make a motion to accept the needs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the needs list for both Ag Center and Expo Center. Any questions or concerns? Okay, all in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any not? Okay.
The next one I've got is Ken. Yeah, maybe Ken, if you don't mind approaching, because I feel like the committee is going to want to ask you some questions about solar battery generators, and I may be wrong, different things like that. So if you kind of want to do a quick rundown of what those items are.
So,
Do you need a list, by the way?
no.
No. Okay.
So, one thing we learned with the tornadoes and such is we're getting a lot of power outages, and that's causing a lot of damage to a lot of IT equipment, the switches and routers and such. If we had the solar battery backup, it would act as a failover. When any outages occur, immediately kick over to the solar system, and we'll skip without a beat.
Next big thing to talk about is the voting system in the commission room.
Yes. Here in the commission room, most of the voting is outdated, I don't believe it's been replaced within the last maybe 10 or 15 years, if I'm correct. And before every commission meeting, we have to come over and do a lot of maintenance and cross our fingers and hope that it's going to work that night. So we're hoping to replace it.
But what is the $200,000 for? What does that pay for?
That will replace the entire system and make it more optimal to one control, well, actually all three control areas, where we can have the young lady that usually works up front and myself or Aaron that works here on the sides. We can control it there in one central location.
Audio visual at the expo, why is that in your,
Yeah, actually, I wanted to move that. I believe that's going to be proposed by the expo.
So we're
Or was
taking
it
that
not?
80,000 out?
It was not.
It was not.
No, it was left in yours. If we need to move it to Expo, we can move it. So that was a matter of confusion of where it was supposed to be, perhaps.
Actually, okay. I'll speak to it. The expo currently has 3 separate units, and neither of which communicate with one another, and they do not work properly. A lot of times you're in one area, and you're adjusting one area, you're expecting that presentation monitor to come down, but it comes down behind you in the next area. We're actually hoping to make it more uniform and make it to where it works properly.
So is this going to stay in his budget, or is it going to go to Expo?
You know, it could go either place, to be honest with you. I mean, he does IT for the whole county, so it could go either place y'all want it to go.
everything under IT right now, with the exception of the expo upgrade, is it for this building?
Well, I also propose that we finish the telephone project, and that would be for
Judicial.
judicial and, yeah, absolutely, just judicial. I was going to say criminal justice, but actually they're asking for their own funding for that, so just judicial.
Yeah. You've also got another assistant in there, webmaster tech support position, and that's somebody to take over a lot of the
overflow. Also, in the past year, we've spent, actually every year, we have a recurring cost of about $21,000 for Peter Baer at Baer Web Design. And we don't control that. If we have to have any changes to the website or any immediate need, we have to go through Peter Baer. And we need to do that in-house. We need to control our own website. We need to have all of that. So we're hoping to hire on someone to carry on the overflow of IT and control our website.
So that's another employee.
Yes.
Aaron, where I don't know if this would matter or not, but where we could get a clearer picture of IT's needs list, could we move the Expo audiovisual upgrade to Expo?
certainly.
And what about moving the telephone upgrade to judicial?
Certainly.
Okay, with the moving 80,000 to Expo and moving 50,000 to judicial. Is there any other questions or concerns concerning the IT needs list? Is there a motion to accept it as amended?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Opposed? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, and then I think Millie. Yeah, let's see. So we're at the top of page 3. I know the pages aren't numbered, but the third page, clerk and master. He's asking for an additional $1,400 in postage due to the postal rate increase in mailing court pleadings, an additional $5,500 in other contracted services, which is basically to cover an increase in the contract with the computer program local government, and another $2,400 in office supplies for court docket books, minute books, LexisNexis, which is basically access to PCA. So she's asking for $9,300, all of which would be considered recurring.
Motion to accept the needs.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
At that point, I'm just going to go in order and let Tom go next.
I'd like to start with the Building Inspection and Codes and Zoning Department needs assessment. And I've got a little bit of background that'll be for both departments, planning as well. One thing that is on our agenda, two things are on our agenda. One is a land use plan update. The Planning Commission, in light of recent growth, and some of the county commission committees, Planning and Zoning Committee being one of them, have requested that I look seriously into undertaking a land use plan update. The last land use plan update was in 2006. The other thing that, in my opinion, needs to happen is commercial codes adoption. We are currently the only major jurisdiction in the area that does not currently have commercial building codes adopted. Most places, when they adopted residential building codes, went ahead and adopted commercial building codes at the same time. We chose not to. We chose to dip our toe in and start with residential codes. But with the amount of commercial growth we're getting out in the county unincorporated area, we do need to have commercial building codes. Hand in hand with that is fire codes, and we did at one time have a fire marshal needs assessment as a part of the building codes needs assessment. In the wisdom of the various committees, that has been moved under Joey Cooper, and that makes some sense. Joey's department has been working pretty graciously with our efforts in planning and building codes to make sure that we're looking at everything that needs to be looked at. And the fire marshal position, in some respects, more rightfully fits under his position. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention is the extreme amount of growth that we've had. If you just look at the AFT numbers, in July of 2018 to July 1st to June 30th, 2018 to 2019 fiscal year, we had 1,374 total AFTs countywide. 2019 to 2020, we had a phenomenal year. We had 3,358 adequate facilities taxes collected in the county. And I'd say phenomenal in terms of it being extraordinary. 1,374 really represents probably a more average busy year, which was 2018 to 2019. As of February 28th of this year, we had already collected 1,838 AFTs for this year, and as of April 1st of this year, I believe that number's up around 2,250 adequate facilities taxes collected countywide. So we're headed back towards a year that's similar to last year. So we're extremely busy in both departments. I believe you have my needs assessments in front of you. The lion's share of those needs assessments has to do with trying to make sure that the positions in the building codes and zoning department get a fair shot at the pay classification study. And we've worked with the staff in there and tried to work with their job descriptions as well as their job titles. Two of those, being the chief deputy zoning administrator and chief building official, have been vetted through your pay consultant, and roughly between $12,000 and $13,000 of the $16,000 that's there are for those two positions. The other 3,000 to 4,000 positions I've not yet had studied, but those are for the different positions that are either the counter staff or the other inspectors in the office, just trying to level them up with what I know is market for those positions. The other thing that we would need to add is a communications line item 307, $1,000. That just has to do with some of the changes that we've been having with both our internet and our phone system, as I understand it, and an additional $1,000 in our fuel line item. We are very tight on fuel. We're hoping not to have to come back to you this following month for an addition in our fuel cost. Part of the reason for that is we have increased our inspections. We have recently started enforcing building codes on accessory structures such as sheds, built-in-place sheds, not roll-offs. We've also upped our inspections with regard to some of the recent accessory dwelling units that we adopted. And so that represents the lion's share of the needs that we have there. In the planning division, this may have more to do with some of the workload with regard to the need for an update to the land use plan. We've also been asked in recent months to look into our drainage countywide. We've been asked to look at several other items that represent quite a bit of time and hours in processing. And I don't really have any way to address that without adding a position. I also happen to know that I have staff members that have grown in their positions enough that they're ready to have some upward mobility. So what I'm proposing is to create a deputy director of planning position, and if it be your wishes, fill in behind that position once I fill the deputy director of planning position. So the strategy there would be to promote from within the department to this new position and fill the vacant staff planner's position being exited. That also has the added benefit of allowing us to get somebody in with the right combination of mapping, development, review, and planning skills in the staff planner's position, particularly with regard to GIS and mapping, to help us with some of our land use planning efforts that appear to be on the horizon. We will be receiving a pretty large dump of decennial census data this fall. I don't think that the timing is poor for doing a land use plan update because that data will be fresh, and it will give us the best snapshot we can demographically of what we have in the county. And I anticipate that a land use plan update would likely take at least 6 months and more likely a year. That's the long and short of my needs assessments. If anybody has any questions, comments, I'm all ears. And I have copies of this information too.
Just briefly.
Sure, yes, sir.
Excuse me, Tom. I chair the Planning and Zoning Committee, and this is the 2006 land use plan. It's antiquated. We find ourselves in here as late as last night amending out of the land use plan because it's antiquated, very much antiquated. And I very much encourage you to add the additional position. Tom and I have talked, and it'll probably take 6 months to update this along with the drainage. And we can't do anything about lightning, we can't do anything about tornadoes, but we can sure do something in the future about drainage if we get on it now. The land use plan needs to be a living document. 25, 30-year plan is bull. It's just not worth anything. A 5-year plan, then renewable is good. And we need to live by it like our Bible. So the manufacturing's over here and the residence is over here. The two don't meet in the middle. So I'm asking you to please support that additional position so we can get this and the drainage plan updated, and then we can all live by it and won't be amending ourselves out of it as we had to do last night and have done in the last several months. Thank you very much.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept planning and codes. Any other questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
County buildings, Robert, you want to talk?
Good evening. Tonight, I just come with you, before you, with two needs in county buildings budget. Looking for funds, increased funds in contracted services, $13,500, and custodial supplies of $2,500. That's just with the increased cost in the buildings, and the buildings we're going to be cleaning. Also for contracted services, we got a new vendor, increase in contracts for HVAC units we're going to be obtaining this year. Our elevator services continue to rise on their service contracts, and then just in cleaning service increases.
Motion to accept needs is presented.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Now questions. Okay, all in favor of accepting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Peg Studio, Miss Teresa. That's gonna be back toward the back, next to the last page, guys.
Do y'all need a printout from me, or is everything in there from the computer program? It's in there from the computer program? Okay. The three areas to which needs to, asking for more is line 309, that is our communications. That's the cell phone and the internet. Line 336, equipment maintenance and support. That covers the streaming service that we're going to get, software programs for production, increase in overall support for the channel and equipment, because everything related to the PEG channel is so computer specific. The folks that produce the pieces of equipment are able to do that. And then the other one is to request my weekly hours from 35 to 40. And the other, I did move some amendments, had some amendments last year, a couple of lines changed. I wanted those to stay where they are, so a couple of thousand was moved from one to another. So where it was at the end of this year, I wanted to stay the same, and then these increases.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept PEG Studios needs list. Any other concerns or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am.
Thank you, somebody finally realized. I appreciate that.
On the third page again, Sheriff.
Thank you, gentlemen and ma'am. Y'all got the list of needs submitted. We're asking for, and I go back to what Tom Brashear just said a while ago about all the adequate facilities tax that's been issued over this year and the past couple of years. We're asking for 8 additional patrol deputies. The main reason it's getting very difficult to answer the calls for service that we're getting. I talk to y'all several times a week about speeders, different problems you're having in different areas, and but I appreciate them calls because we need to know what's going on. And that's going to enable us to add extra patrol deputies on each shift and able us to answer these calls for service. The next one is one SRO for the new Jones Brummett School. Is due to be open in this next fall, I believe. It's just a new school that's complete, and we've got SROs in every school in the county, and that'll be our next step in continuing that. One investigator, detective, general detective. It goes back to the number of patrol officers, the number of calls, the number of criminal cases we're getting. It's getting where it's hard to follow up on a bunch of these investigations, and one extra detective will enable us to do a little bit better job than what we're doing. And the dispatcher, the calls for service continues in that dispatch area. We're getting calls, like I said, 24 hours a day, and it's hard for them to keep up in there, and one extra dispatcher will help there. And I'll ask Aaron or y'all how y'all want to handle this as far as it relates to the radio system and the new phone system for the office. I heard a phone system mentioned a while ago for the Judicial Center, I believe it was. And I think this building had a phone upgrade with the past few months. Our system is antiquated. We're out of lines, and this phone system that we're proposing will get us ready for the expansion of the jail that's being built right now, so it will handle that. But we're down to we're going to call Aunt B and get her to push lines next if we're going to do anything. So, and the communication, the radio system, I've spoke with that several times. I think Director Cooper and me's working together on this. It's something that we have to do. It's very important. We've got dead spots in this county that officers cannot get out on their portable radios. It's a safety situation. It's something we have to do. I don't think it's a need. It's not a want. And we got to take care of our officers who are out there on the street. And it's very important they get this done. My question to y'all is exactly how y'all want to do this. You want to keep it in the needs? You want to do it different? Or how y'all would like to proceed with that? But it'll be a joint effort between us and WEMA. And that concludes unless there's any questions.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept sheriff's needs list. Is there any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Animal control.
On the needs list, we no longer get food from Nutro, and we're gonna have to start buying dog food. I had mentioned to Aaron, we figured 2,000. A bag of food is $50, $25 for a 50-pound bag, and we probably use 2 bags a week if we have 12 runs full. And I was gonna ask for $2,600 for dog food, and we're still trying to find someone they're willing to donate. And Sue and I are going to go check out Rural Canaan. So we've tried call there and we can't get through.
And I didn't have the 2,600. I remember us discussing that, Mary.
2,000 we discussed, but we figured it out. It would take 2 bags a week, and we figured it to $2,600 a year.
Okay. And what I do have, though, is the veterinarian.
Yes, yes. We're getting a lot of dog bites now, and a lot of the vets are not doing dog bites. They're not doing quarantines, and we're having to start doing the quarantines. And we also get dogs that are hit by car that we have to bring in, and if they're savable, we have to rush them to the vet. You know that. But anyway, and the quarantine, a vet needs to be on staff and check the dogs out, because we're not vets and we don't know what rabies looks like. So they have to give the okay to release the dog. And right now what we're doing is we're sending them to a vet to get a post-quarantine exam to okay the dog. But like I said, we get dogs that come in hurt and we have to take them to the vet. We would be able to give rabies shots at our shelter, because by law it states that a dog needs a rabies shot before it leaves the shelter, and we would be able to do that and include that in our cost for quarantine. And so I'm asking for a part-time veterinarian, 2 days a week, 4 hours per day. I'm asking $15,600.
So that would be just somebody that's probably a veterinarian somewhere else that we're just going to contract with.
Yes, yes.
So would that come under contracted services?
It's listed on it.
I know she's got on her needs, but we would put it under contracted services, right?
Yeah.
Make a motion to add the 2,600, which would make it 18,200, except the needs.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve animal control needs list as amended. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Tatum. Okay, we'll skip Judge Tatum since he's on his way, and we'll go on to drug court.
hate to push my luck. Mr. Mayor's been doing real good for you.
You mean pushing my luck, or?
Well, no, he's been a lot better than me. Good evening, everyone. What I've got in front of you this evening, and actually I appreciate Mr. Maynard and Ms. Vaughn Barr's help in this. I come to you tonight, this situation that's really come up pretty quick. I've had some staff turnover that's been going on for the past couple of years. We get folks in and they last about a year in our program, and they move off to other agencies. And I guess what got my attention was about a month ago, I had one of my folks present to me that had been here right at a year and left and went to Smith County probation, which kind of surprised me. So I reached out to Ms. Vaughn to find out maybe what I might do to correct that. So we got to looking at our pay scale, and what we determined is that my folks who work probation, their job description was actually submitted as a case manager, because it's a probation position, but we also do referrals for treatment agencies as well. We got to looking at, there seems to be a big difference between, even within the county, between a quote probation officer and a quote case manager. So she referred me to a gentleman I think that you folks have worked with in the past, Mr. Stephen Thompson with, I think it's Burroughs, Thompson and Associates. As I understand it, and I want to look at Mr. Maynard here, that may have been the agency that actually consulted with the county with regard to putting the pay scale together. So we were looking at that. I reached out to Mr. Maynard. We had to do this under a pretty short time frame because I think Ms. Vaughn's time was limited here as well. And what we determined is that my staff, who sat beside some of these people in court about every day, realized that they were quite underpaid, and were actually in the same courtroom at the same time performing the same duties. So we requested the documentation from Mr. Thompson, which I've got, I hope, as I look over here to Mr. Maynard again, he received that email as well, that there was a review of the job descriptions and the duties, and I believe he also supported the position that it is the same duties, same purpose, same function, and would be eligible within his scope here, would be eligible for the same compensation. So that's what I'm requesting tonight, and it looks as, and I think I've been using the term as a rate adjustment, probably more so than quote a needs request, because I was just surprised that it really kind of taken me this long to realize that that was the situation. But that's my request to you folks this evening.
Yeah, certainly, no disrespect to that county, but when you lose an employee to Smith County for more money, that is
I was surprised, and I actually reached out to their General Sessions judge there, and he indeed confirmed that to me. So yes, sir, and I think Mr. Maynard, again, far more eloquent than I was when I presented it to him that day. I went in and said, Mr. Maynard, actually I said, Aaron, you're not going to believe this. So, but yes, that's what really caught my attention.
Do they have a different title there?
No, they're a probation officer, yes, sir. And actually, they left our employee here on a Friday and was in court there on Monday. So, yeah, that's right. But that's my request.
So this is for one position, Mr. Dixon?
It would affect two, because I've got the vacant position, and then I currently have a young lady that's in that position now. And again, when you look at the qualifications, this young lady's been with me for 5 years. She's a graduate of Cumberland University, actually did her internship, her unpaid internship with us, and came on board, has done a real good job, and I'll be honest with you, she's sitting there waiting, because it's our understanding that we're looking at the state in July adjusting for their probation officers getting a pay adjustment. So I think she'd like to stay with us. She has not said anything. She's been very good about it, but that is a concern of mine, that I could possibly lose another one to another agency.
and please correct me if I'm mistaken, but this basically puts your people on par with what our other probation office.
Correct. Yes, sir. Correct. And we discussed that, and Mr. Maynard, his foresight, said, you know, we need to look at it. You know, people saying, I would not want to put another department in the situation I'm in. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, well, you know, we do this, so therefore that compensation. No, we're presenting it as it's the same job, same duties, same service, same rate. So that's what we would request.
Make a motion to accept needs.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any additional questions?
I do have additional questions. I know that, I guess codes, I know judicial, I know I guess those three departments, are there any more that's looking to try to get their positions in line?
I think
Do we know
so.
of?
I think there is one more. There's one more that I'm aware of.
Well, also property assessor.
Yeah.
See it in here. I guess that's something that as we go to the next level, is that something we can kind of look at as far as together, as far as those positions, see what the pay study?
Yeah,
I know we was working on a pay study last year, or was it the year before?
2 years ago, because we started doing something 2 years ago, and then, of course, last year, COVID sort of put everything on hold.
Let me speak to it. And I'm for employees, and I guess I'll talk to you sometime about this one, and I think it's the clarification of the position or the job description is what you're saying, because what we did, if you remember a while back, we had people saying, hey, I'm not paid enough or whatever, so we did a pay study. This guy you're talking about came in and did that. We compared ourselves to Williamson Road for Sumner, Montgomery County, and you guys said, hey, we need to get our people up there, and you got everybody up to 80% of market. It cost you 15 cents on the tax rate that time. That's when we did it 35 cents. And we said going forward, what we wanted to do was every 3 years reevaluate. So you did reevaluate in 3 years, and you brought everybody to 85% that time. And you're scheduled to reevaluate next year, which is the other 3-year period. And, you know, our hopes will be to get everybody to 90%. At that time, it's what we'll ask you to do, if you will. So we've done that, and then you guys also passed a resolution that said, hey, if growth money's there, 3.5% or better, we'll do it a 1.5% increase to employees, and 0.5% would go to our insurance fund. And we've done that twice, I think, maybe twice. So that will be there. I think Stephen and I talked about his people. Same thing with Mr. Dixon here too, is that, you know, when we did the pay study, they should have come, and I think they did say, hey, here's what these people are making. And I think what you had them classified then as, it got adjusted. Now you're saying, well, you know, they're really not this, they're this. And changing the job description to get them even with somebody else. Because we did the very same thing with the clerk's office with letters of agreement. Because people in Debbie Moss's office and the people in Barbara Webb at the time, Millie's now, you know, we put them to where they are on line with each other. And the same thing with these three offices up here with the trustee and the clerk and the register of deeds. So we've tried to make a good, so I think all I'm saying is, let's don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here and say, gosh, we're in trouble, man, we got to do something, because you have been doing something already. Now, if this one is a little off kilter, if his is off kilter, you know, maybe so, but I don't think I think you're on a plan right now to reevaluate everybody next year and get them to 90%, hopefully, because your benefits are great. I mean, nobody compares to our benefits at all.
We had this conversation a couple of days ago, I believe.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, and I'm for employees, not always have been, and we've always worked that way. But to answer your question about the history and where we've been and maybe where we're headed.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve needs
Accept.
list for growth court. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank y'all very much, and by the way, I neglected, I talked about Ms. Vaughn, I talked about Mr. Maynard. Ms. LeBronny there's been a tremendous help. I appreciate all her hard work. Thank you. Thank y'all this evening.
Who's up?
Mr. Goff. Property assessors at the bottom of page 1.
Yeah, look, good evening. Like Mr. Maynard said and Mr. Dixon, yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I had 2 employees leave me. One was one of the best ones I had, and I'm still kind of hurting over that one. But the first, I'm asking for 2 things. The first one is I'm asking for $36,855 for a salary adjustment. I updated my job descriptions, and I believe that their job descriptions may have been misclassified last salary study. I wasn't here when that was, I mean, I came here in 2016, and I think I got with Miss Massey, and she told me, she pulled the old salary study that we talked about, and everybody was classified as, she said, either as a deputy assessor or a field appraiser, stuff like that, and the stuff she was saying was not what their descriptions are. I said, well, everybody is a deputy assessor. That just, you swear them in, that allows them to go on the people's property to do the same job as me, to act as the assessor. I said, that's not really their job description. Their job descriptions are chief mapping, chief deputy, office managers, building permits, coordinator, personal property coordinator, green belt. There's all kinds of different things. And so that's their actual job descriptions, and I've updated them. So what I did is I went to, I don't have a letter of agreement with the mayor or anything like that, but I went to the offices who did have them. And so what I did is I compared the other offices to my office for the hours they work, and I adjusted the pay. And that's where I came up with the number of the 36,000. And that'll be divided up among 15 employees. But that doesn't give them above them. It just makes it comparable to them. We work 35 hours. Other offices work 37 and a half. So it's not above them. It's just equal to what they make. And that's all I'm asking for, is just to be comparable to them. And I know in a couple of years or next year you're going to do the salary study, but we're already behind, the way I view it, and we're just trying to catch up to what everybody else is making. Then the salary study, when it comes in, then I believe that would be true. The second thing is I'm asking for $19,000 for a part-time position. This position will be in the field office. This person will perform field inspections of improvements within the county, including property reviews, measuring all structures. They'll go out and visit these new construction homes, people that build barns and stuff like that, and it helps us get it on quicker. But they'll also, I can bring them in the office as well and be able to do something then. So I'm asking for the salary adjustments and the part-time position for $19,000. It's about 14 hours a week.
The 36,855,
Yes,
how
sir.
many people does that affect?
15.
Make a motion to accept the needs as presented.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second to accept needs as presented. Any questions?
I do have a question again.
Yes, sir.
The people, I know you said you lost somebody, I know somebody else lost somebody to another department. Are they losing them to a 40-hour work week or a 35-hour work week? It's hard for me to grasp
In my office, it
35
was-
hours a week, because I never see, I never see that. Why do we do 35 hours a week, not 40?
That's the way it was when I walked in the office.
We'll do it
Mayor?
lunch.
There are some offices that operate on 35, some 37 and a half, and some 40.
To answer your
Is
question,
their week.
she left because of the pay. That's all. I mean, she said she wanted to stay and cried her eyes out, but she made more money doing something else. So I couldn't compete with it.
So is it comparing, and this may be a finance question, is it comparing 35 hours, their pay here,
To 37 and a half, but
where they left to, they went to?
I adjusted. Oh, to them, I'm not sure. I didn't ask. It's just the money, is what she said.
Yeah, we've always tried to look at the hourly rate of pay regardless of how many hours they worked. So, in other words, we didn't take somebody who's got a 40-hour week and take that same salary, and adjust the hourly rate to make that fit 35.
But the PEG channel, she's working 35 hours and she wants to increase her pay and work 40 hours.
It's true.
So that's kind of, little bit
Yeah,
different
and the
what you're
PEG
saying.
channel, I would say, is one of the loosest of the, I mean, how many, several I know, but probably you have less comparison there, as you have of a lot of similar positions. I mean, sheriff department, law enforcement, you have tons of comparative data. EMTs, in our case, we're kind of special even there because we got firefighters, which most counties don't. You have, from a PEG standpoint, everybody's kind of doing that differently, and it's hard to find somebody to really probably compare her to that well, although I'll be more than happy to have Steve take a look and see, what he thinks. This is what came out of the committee. That's all I can tell you.
I understand that. It's kind of odd for me, I guess, where I've always worked 40 hours.
Yeah,
And we've got people full-time that's
yes,
working less hours.
yeah.
I don't know, my little brain can't accept, don't really accept that very good.
If they're
Aaron's-
full-time, there should be 40 hours.
Yes, exactly.
And Aaron is spot on in that they compared these jobs comparable to the other counties or cities. So they included cities on the second study, and they did it on an hourly rate. So it didn't matter if you worked 35, 37 and a half, or 40. That person doing that, because what brought this up was, and I'm not going to use your people, but I'm going to say the clerk up here in Goodall's office that worked here, that's selling tags, is no worse than the person selling tags in Williamson County. So that's why we said we wanted them close. And so I think when we go back to the PEG channel lady, Teresa, she's getting paid whatever that rate was at 80%, 85, I'm not sure where she's at, and she wants to work 5 more hours because we just had her at 35. Like when I got here, Bernie Ash was the Veterans Support officer, and he was only making this much. People got to looking at it per year. But Bernie came in at 8, left at 2, and took an hour lunch. So, I mean, he wasn't even getting 35 at the time. But when they said, well, he's only making this much a year, and so everybody kind of felt bad. We said, hey, look at the time we're looking at. So we do have to compare hourly rate. And I mean, and on his particular case, as well as anybody else, I just want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. Hourly rate's the main thing, and whatever the property assessors are, offices in these other counties, they all have them, that's the people we compare it to, not some
Well, we
other
should
office that don't compare.
Look at the 40 hours, and not picking on your department or anybody else, it's just, if they were doing 40 hours a week, that's 5 more hours per person, and kind of like it might not need a part-time person.
A lot of departments could go 40 hours a week tomorrow, by the way. That would increase your pay across the board. You wouldn't pay them the same thing for 40 that you're paying them for 35.
I'm sure they would love to go 40 hours a week, but
Yeah,
it's
so-
just,
so it would increase your pay across the board.
I understand all that, but it's
Yeah.
hard for me to understand why
Yeah.
we started so many years ago paying somebody 35 hours, because whatever it is, it still equates out
Yes,
to a full-time position.
yes,
It seems like a full-time position, you'd be getting 40 hours from.
yeah.
It's just, like I said.
I thought I asked that question many years ago when I first came on as county commissioner, and I was told, be it right or wrong, that we don't pay them to go to lunch. I mean, I don't know if that's the way it is.
I don't
or-
think that's true. No,
That's
ma'am.
what I was told,
Yeah, I
and
don't
I'm
think that's
thinking,
true. I think the truth is that it probably started at 37 and a half because the state works 37 and a half. That's full-time if you work for the state in an office anyway.
I thought
I
Ron
can't-
Gilbert
I
had
can't
told me
speak for
that.
State troopers or whatever other personnel they have. But if you work in an office, it's 37 and a half a week
With the
Because he's,
state,
with the state.
because
Now
Ron
then-
Gilbert had said something about 31, the ones that's 37 and a half hours. I mean, he
Yeah.
said it was a 30-minute lunch break, and then the other ones was like an hour lunch break, and that's the way he explained it to me, because I asked that same question.
Well, it all depends. If you go, so let's just take a standard day. If you go from 8 to 12, that's 4 hours. If you leave from lunch for 12 to 1, and you come back and you work from 1 to 4:30, that's 3.5. You work 7.5 hours that day. And that's the way the state system is designed for their office people. Now, what happened along the way is that because they can, and no knock to any of them, I'm guessing, please, I shouldn't guess, but I'm guessing that along the way, it probably started with some elected officials who decided, let's go back from 37 and a half to 35.
Right.
Because they can.
Right.
That would be my guess.
When we did the pay study, what we learned was some work 8 to 4, some work 8 to 4:30. Some take 30-minute lunch, and they don't get paid for it. Some take an hour lunch. And that's what evolved around 35, 37 and a half, and 40. Yeah.
I was told.
Which I wish, I know I bring it up every year, but I wish we could, maybe even if we had to pay some extra money to get everybody caught up at once, put everybody in the entire county on 40 hours that are working offices or whatever, just so everything's the same, because right now, we got this department doing one thing, another department doing another. We've got judicial, I know they're here, they're working 40. What does your office work?
Both my offices work 35, but I will tell you, one of the struggles that I have is my staff, they routinely work more than 35 hours a week, and they have tons of comp time as a result.
Sheriff, you have anybody working 35?
Well, ours services differently, as far as ours sits at 4.
I know this is not here nor there, I just wish we could fix it.
Well, this that you're seeing tonight, I have 2 of my people and earlier 3. I had 3 of my people here right up until the time this meeting started. 2 of them are still here. And on any given night of the week, you're liable to find the same thing. What are our regular office hours? 35.
My office doesn't get comp time, we don't get overtime, so that falls on me when I have to, and I'm okay with that, but that's why I was wanting the part-time position, because when I draw these houses, I take them home every night, and I worked about 9:30, 10 o'clock every night and weekends, and just to catch them up, because I had one lady retire who would draw. I have a part-time guy who draws it, and he's out of his time now until July, so I take it home with me every night, but that's because I'm salary and my name's on the door, and I have to do that, and I'm okay with that. But that's another reason I was asking for the part-time position. That would alleviate me and help me out at home. And so sometimes I just got to put it down, but I could work till midnight every night and still not get caught up. So
Maybe salaries needs to be a separate issue that we can look at in this process, but as of right now, we've got a motion and a second to approve the assessor's needs list. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Joy Cooper. You will find that on page 4, middle of the page.
Good evening, Budget Committee. I'm here to propose 6 personnel. These we have down for Lebanon Zone. These personnel would actually be semi-floaters to fill any vacancies that we have in any of our stations, which we do on a quite regular basis. Especially this last year. Fortunately, we haven't had to close any stations down. We have had to drop personnel at some of those stations. So they would basically fill those spots, and then if everybody's at work, then they would actually fulfill a 3rd ambulance in Lebanon for the backup that we have. We're also requesting 6 personnel for the Watertown Zone outside of Watertown City. Right now we have basically the only coverage there is Watertown Volunteer Fire Department. And during the day, you're going to be lucky if you get 1 or 2 people, if that. So we want to supplement that area outside the city limits with an engine up there and people on it. So we're requesting that. As Tom alluded to earlier, we are requesting fire inspector. They will also do fire investigations and fire prevention, which will help on our ISO ratings. That we currently have. So that position, and he pretty much gave you a history on why that position was being offered. So unless there's any questions.
What are we doing about the fire investigator now? I remember us having that conversation. Didn't we
We
have
don't
that
have
conversation?
one.
Okay, I thought we talked about that a little bit last year, so that's why I asked
State coming
again.
now?
Yes, yeah, the state does it all now. And then some other items related to personnel. the training program we have, uniforms in service. Then I have two items, one for maintenance and repair of equipment. Due to increase in repairs on equipment that we have bought, we haven't raised that line up in some time, and I'm requesting $3,000 in that line. Also with drugs and medical supplies, naturally this last year, costs have increased tremendously. We did, if you remember, moved over 29,000 earlier this year, but that's only for this year. So we're requesting that on a continual basis. And then we have some non-reoccurring items, equipment for the third ambulance if we do that in Lebanon, turnout gear for the personnel, a vehicle, MSA air packs. On that issue, right now we have some Firehawks that are no longer being serviced. I have a letter from the company that says they do not service those air packs anymore. Half of our fleet is the new ones, which are the MSA, and these are the Firehawks. And to replace all of them comes to that $338,000. Cascade system. Right now we have a 1-bottle fill station in Lebanon, and that's the only one we have. We do use West Wilson Utility to fill bottles down west, but that's only available at certain times. So sometimes after fires, crews will have to come up, or engines will have to come up to Lebanon to fill those bottles. And when you do one at a time, after you use about 20, it takes a while to do that. So we're wanting to keep those people more in zone. That way, if they get a call, it's quicker to respond to it. So airbags for heavy rescue, the ones we have, I want to guess 20 years old. They're pretty old. These we use for semi-trailer wrecks, heavy farm equipment, things like that. You use them to lift the equipment off the patient. This is the only set we have in the whole county. But they're dry rotted, so using those.
You just have one?
Yes, one complete set, yes.
Oh, one set.
Yeah, it's a set of like 3. They stack on top of each other to blow up. But anytime heavy rescue like that is needed within the county, our rescue from Station 1 over here has to respond because we only have that one set. So I'm requesting to replace those. Outside of that, I want to reiterate on the radio system. If you remember a few years back, we come before you to increase some of the radio system stuff we have now on our way to digital. And we're at that point right now to move forward with that. And we are on board jointly with the sheriff in that project. Because now, we believe it's the time to do it, and it's something that needs to be done for safety reasons. So, and that concludes my needs list.
Make a motion to accept the needs as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions?
I do.
Go.
Before we meet in June to kind of go over all the needs, is there a way we can find out about the grant, the 28 million, if any of the things like the radio system, maybe the MSA air packs, all that kind of stuff, what we can get?
I mean, those things are certainly on the top of my priority list, Commissioner Glover, in terms of, I didn't get to today, but I intend to read all the Treasury regulations and get whatever information I can in terms of what's allowed
John went to the comptroller's meeting, the mayor was out and everybody.
Yeah.
And I went up afterwards and kind of asked, said, okay, as far as law, which I was asking about law enforcement, but I said, is law enforcement, because everything they talked about was other things besides as far as response. But he said, they basically told me as long as it says for future response to COVID, then you can get the police, you can get the fire, all that kind of stuff, and anything we can save.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm very, and I certainly, I mean, the comptroller's opinion is huge and well informed. You know, this to me is like I told somebody earlier today. This is like you won the lottery, and they said, "Congratulations, you can't spend any of it on yourself. You just have to give it away in $20,000 increments. Here's $28 million. Give it away in $20,000 increments, and you can't keep any of it yourself."
I know, it's kind of crazy.
It's nuts.
And me saying that, I do know that you're going to do the best job. I just want to make sure any money that we can, I just want to say it publicly.
Yeah.
Any money that we can save using that money is just more we can get personnel that we do need for the county.
No doubt about it. The mayor and I have had a conversation, and his point is well taken in that, you know, the first thing we want to do is to identify what can we do with it as a county. I mean, that's the first thing we want to do before we do anything else. What can we do with it as a county that saves us long-term headaches, you know, like communication systems for our emergency personnel.
Thank you.
And that's what I was saying last night to you. And we wanted to get all the needs together because, you know, the state has come up with money as well. You know, they've set aside $931 million for capital improvements, infrastructure. So I don't know what that means, but our goal is, and they set aside, you know, I think $100,000 for $100,000 investment for high-speed broadband. You know, we asked them about could those radios be taken out, and they said, yeah, there's a possibility there. So we want to take everything that has been asked on the needs list to both the state and the federal people with the comptroller and say, hey, can we get this out of here? Because everything we could knock off this needs list with state or federal money, we want to do that before we come back to y'all and say, hey, we're going to need growth money for this. So me and Aaron will work, and we'll try to find every grant that's out there that's available right now with the state money. I think I heard today that the state money, no later than July 31st, they will let us know what plan they have as far as $1.6 million that could be coming our way, what that can be spent on. So we will bring all of that back to you before June the 1st. And like we said, we got June the 1st and 2nd, we got 7th, 8th, and 10th if we need it.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the needs list. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir.
I think that just leaves us. And so-
Judicial.
Oh, judicial court. Oh, no, yeah, please.
You also have.
And the judge. And the judge.
And the judge is here.
Judge is
Judge is
here.
here. Okay. Go ahead, Lisa. He was late. We'll make him wait longer.
His honor. Good evening, ma'am, gentlemen. My needs list starts out with the request for an additional part-time and additional full-time personnel for my office. Our office is a 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I currently need to cover 45 shifts to be fully staffed. If I were to be awarded an additional part-time and additional full-time person, that would allow me to cover 47 shifts. That would allow me 2 shifts a week for call-outs for sick leave, for vacation coverage, etc. I also am requesting out of line 189 an increase for personnel, for increase in salary for 2 reasons. I currently need a supervisor or a team lead or a lead judicial commissioner on my midnight shift to handle some personnel issues and to handle some oversight issues. I also am taking, I hired today an additional part-time person, and we have another person that we'll be bringing on board too. So we're trying to develop a training program for our office for new employees. So I would like to have somebody in that role as well with added responsibilities. So that's my request for some additional monies in my other salaries lines. I'm also requesting in other contracted services an increase of $1,800. When judicial commissioners are hired, they are required to undergo psychological testing, drug screening, and as well as background, but the psychological testing alone is $300. That's the rate that we were able to get last year through the Sheriff's Department. And also, we're in a new facility that is completely carpeted, and that would allow for one carpet cleaning a year in that facility. We've requested some money in our communications line. We're in, like I said, the new location. We're responsible for our internet, our fax, our landline phones, and our cell phone. The additional money requested in our travel line is for the additional employees. We are statutorily required to complete 12 hours of continuing legal education a year. Those conferences are held in Memphis and in Pigeon Forge. That money would allow for the per diem rate, the lodging, and the mileage reimbursement. In my non-recurring line, I have requested it's a TCA, it's a criminal instruction manual book. It's a one-time expense, but it gets an update every single year, an electronic update for all the criminal laws in Tennessee that my people need to be very familiar with as they're reviewing warrants every single day. Very importantly, since I took this position in assessing the needs of this office, there has been a little bit of neglect over the past years, but one of the biggest areas is the computer system for my department. My department has absolutely no backup. If the computer crashes tonight, we will never be able to retrieve the data that's on those computers, the search warrants, the orders of protection, the ex partes, or the warrants. We're requesting the money for a backup server that would allow our computers to be networked. The other problem with our computer system is it's running off a software system called Omni that the license expired 10 years ago. There is no support system for this software, but we're still using this for our warrants. But the biggest problem that we have recently found is that while we got new computers before I took office, they run on Windows 10, the latest software in Windows. This system will not run on anything over Windows 7. So we are trying to run off of 3 computers because we have 3 old computers that still have Windows 7. If we're able to get the backup server that will network the computer system, we've been working with our Aaron and Ken. We'll be able to develop, it's called an Adobe Acrobat document that will allow a mail merge. So we won't have to rely on that Omni software at all. We'll be able to use just an Adobe document, and the computers will be interconnected. So, and the backup server, of course, would store all our data in case of any interruption or crashes in the system. I've requested some $2,000 for in-service staff development, just for training, and some memberships for my employees for their continuing education. And we also requested $1,500 for just some additional office equipment needed for our office space. We developed an officer's room for the officers to come in and do their reports so they don't have to try to do them in their cars, or if they don't have, or if they're not close to their command centers. So we want to put 2 computer stations in there. The computers were actually donated by Lebanon Police Department, but we just need the desk and the setup and some file cabinets in there for that. That concludes my needs requests. I know it's probably more than has been normally presented by this department, but since I took over, we've been doing a lot of things there, and I've come across a lot of areas that really do need some attention, particularly the computer system and the personnel.
Make motion to accept the needs as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now questions. Okay, you've heard the needs list is,
We still have Judge Tatum to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
My bad.
We already done the clerk and master. We do the clerk and master?
Who did them first?
Okay, I didn't check her off.
Judge?
Here come the judge.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize about the way I dressed. I thought this was going to be tomorrow night. If you bear with me just a minute, I'm going to show Robert something.
Tattoo.
Taking some notes?
I need to get his telephone number one day, and I had these same overalls on, and I wrote his number on my leg because I didn't have a piece of paper. But Nanette can attest that I do better. I had
Yeah, he
lunch
was
with
looking
her
really
today at
nice
10.
earlier today.
But first of all, thank you for hearing us, and I had some things to do this evening that I couldn't do tomorrow. And I talked to LeBronya, and I told her I'd be up here by 7. I checked with the sheriff, and he said he was going to hold y'all hostage until I got here. But thank you for your time. Where to start? I don't come up here every year asking for an expansion or a needs request. The last time that we had an expansion of services for juvenile court or for the court system was in 2008 when the third general sessions position was created. So I'm going to be rusty at this. If you look across the state and look at the population of the counties that are out there, what I tend to find is that for every 50,000 people in population, you'll have one general sessions judge. Once you get to that 50,000 threshold, the caseload, the number of cases, criminal cases, civil cases, divorce cases, child support cases, DCS cases, gets to the point to where it's really unmanageable for one person. In 2008, I don't know what our population was at that time, but we were well past or right past 100,000 in population, probably a little bit more than that. And Judge Hagan has done superb about, Judge Gwynn at that time was the judge who was elected, filled that position, took care of the orders of protection, the child support, and the divorce cases that Judge Hamilton did, and then he took over all the criminal cases. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me that I talked about when I first met with the Judiciary Committee meeting, but my jurisdiction, just mine alone, is dealing with civil cases, which have increased since 2008 by, if memory serves me correctly, about 43 to 47%, the number of cases that are filed. The DCS cases pretty well mirror that as well. So the workload just in those two areas is increased by half. We'll have cases that come along, just to give you an idea about the time frame. You may have a DCS case that, let's say, starts January 1. And we're required by law to try to work with the families and work through their issues and problems that resulted in their removal. And that is mandated to take a certain amount of time, no less than 4 months in most instances. But with some progress, that could take 6 months to a year. And if we get to that point to where we say it's time to have a trial, it's time to put this matter to rest, these parents are not making sufficient progress, and we need a trial date, we are looking right now anywhere from 6 to 8 months out in the future before we can give them a trial date on a case that's already existed since the first of the year. Now, there are few solutions. I don't know what the numbers are going to be for the census. And I don't know if you've heard anything from your office, but we're rapidly approaching the 150,000 person mark. And if it's not this time with the census, I dare say it's probably going to be next year. So we're at that breaking point again. In order to get another general sessions judge position, that requires a private act through the legislature, and the state is going to mandate that any additional staffing, such as public defenders or district attorneys or probation officers that they pay for, they're not going to pay for. They're going to want the county to pick up that charge. The time frame in getting a fourth general sessions judge position would take approximately 2 years. So we're looking at someone being on the ballot in 2024 if we were to act as early as we could next year. An interim solution, or something I think would work, would be what's known as a judicial magistrate, or used to be called a judicial referee, which is an attorney who's licensed to practice law in good standing, who is appointed by one of the sitting judges. And I've talked with Judge Hagan about this, because this person could directly help our two courts by hearing child support cases, paternity cases, and also hearing status offense and truancy cases, and also delinquency cases for pleas or quick hearings. The cost on that would be less because the salary is not mandated by the state like it is for the general sessions judges. And we have the option of doing it either as a full-time or a part-time position. Ideally, you would love to have a full-time position. I think the workload is there that that person could be managed. However, starting something new like this, I recognize that there are kinks and problems that have to be worked out. So a short-term solution may be allowing for a part-time person to fill in this position as a judicial referee, as a judicial magistrate, to hear those types of cases, to free up the dockets that we have. I'm not exactly sure what Judge Hagan's backlog is, but it's several months from what I understand. But it would be be a way to address an immediate need. Then, if the county decided to act at some point for a fourth general sessions judge, we would have some time in which to do that. Space has come up as an issue as to what we would do about court space, because right now, when all of our circuit judges, our chancellor, and our sessions judges are in session, there's no available courtroom. Now, there is space over at the Highland Heights Church, which would require some sort of building out or addressing for that. But we're talking about a room that would be a quarter the size of this room, with some tables and chairs. And we do have attached to that a needs assessment that addresses the memberships and dues that would be required, the liability insurance that would be required. And of course, there are the retirement issues and the Social Security issues and the insurance that would be determined or dependent upon whether it's a full-time or a part-time person. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a quick overview, and I don't have any prepared notes, but I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
The 100,000 listed, does that represent part-time or full-time?
That represents a full-time salary on there, with the benefits that go along with that. And of course, that could be adjusted downward for a part-time position.
Does a decision made by the magistrate have to be approved by one of the judges?
It does. You're talking about a case hearing. It does have to be ratified by one of the judges. So if they hear a paternity case, the way it's done in other counties that have judicial magistrates, Robertson County has them, Cheatham County has them, Sumner County's had them for years, is that they'll make a ruling or a finding of delinquency and impose a sentence or a status offense, and they'll assign what's known as a disposition for a juvenile, and then that has to be ratified or signed off if that decision is not appealed within the 10 days.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the needs list for general sessions judges. Any other comments, concerns, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Part-time, what would the salary be, do you think?
That is something that could be negotiable on that, and we could either do it based upon the number of hours that they actually hold court, or we could set a specific number of hours. But generally, what you're going to be looking at is somewhere in the $70 to $80 range per hour.
It's the same thing we talked about in the parking lot of the
Yes,
post
sir.
office one day.
Thank you so much for your time and your patience and understanding about my comfortable dress.
Let me get a picture of you real quick, hold on.
It's on TV, right?
Won't nobody recognize it.
You're wearing a jersey.
We're losing Judge.
Okay, Aaron, you're next.
Yeah, I just have two things. The first one is, as you guys know, we're doing the budget in ClearGov this year, and that was 35,000, of which we got 14, which was the agreement that ClearGov made with us to get our budget done for 6/30 of '22, which we're working on right
It's
now.
on the first page.
As of July 1st, I will owe them another payment of 35,000, which will cover us through fiscal year '23. So that 15,000 is the balance that I'll need to pay in addition to the 14 that you already gave me earlier in the year. The second thing is, as y'all know, we underwent a major shakeup this year, and we had 10 employees, and I took the duties and responsibilities of Ms. Sharon Lackey and divided them up amongst several people in my office. I took some, Abranya took some, Joe took some, and Teresa took some. But as I look at the job description side by side of what Sharon Lackey's job description was and what Ms. LaBranya Horton's job description is, I don't see a great disparity there. And I do know one thing for sure: without her, without having her to turn to take on things and the knowledge that she has, she's done accounts payable, she's done payroll, she's been in charge of insurance before. She's done almost every job in the place, and she knows more about Skyward than almost anybody I've got. When I put her in that spot, I would never say it was interim, but it was a let's see how she performs, and she has exceeded my expectations. And I just don't think, whereas Sharon was making about 79 roughly, I know I hate to talk about this kind of stuff publicly. You know, LaBranya's making about, at this point, about 65. And I feel like, in fairness to her, and it would be a dereliction of duty on my behalf, not to say, you know, I think she deserves more. And we still, that will leave us the money, by the way, to hire that 10th person and make ourselves whole the way we were before. That's why I'm asking for the 15. I'll tell you this right now: if you don't give me what I'm asking for, I will take, of the money that I have left over where Sharon left, I will make Miss LaBranya whole, and we will survive with 9 people if it kills us, because I owe her that. She's been a tremendous asset, tremendous employee for a number of years and done a lot of different things. So,
At the end of the day, you're just actually, you took your trial period with LaBranya, and now you're going to move her to where Sharon was because you feel comfortable. So she's just filling that spot, making that salary. And you need the extra 15 for the extra person, really.
Correct.
Motion to approve.
I got a second for the question.
yes, ma'am.
I noticed on here you got something about maintenance and repair. What do you need to repair?
That is where we're putting the additional money for it's a maintenance agreement that we have with ClearGov.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Any,
I'm sorry.
go.
I have one question back on what we were talking about earlier on the IT budget, where we moved the 80,000 audio visual equipment to the Expo Center. I'm with you 110% on that. where we moved the communications equipment that was gonna be the telephone upgrade over to the judicial building. Here's kind of where I have a confusion.
You want to leave it where it is?
Well, here's just, hear me out for 1 second. I got the circuit court over there, I got judges over there, I got drug court, judicial commissioners, clerk and master, and that's if I'm not leaving anybody out.
It's everybody at Highland Heights Church right now?
No, that's everybody at the judicial city.
East High.
Yeah, and so it doesn't fit neatly into, I could take that cost and divide it up amongst however many categories I have, or I can leave it in IT where I think phone truly belongs, is in
Yeah,
IT.
let's do that then.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Now, the phone system, I know the money that we get on the COVID relief, you can build sewage lines and water lines.
Yes.
Would not telephone lines be equally as appropriate?
Definitely ask them.
I mean, you're talking infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's all infrastructure, whether it be Wi-Fi, telephone lines.
All I can tell you is the same thing I said before, is that until we're sure, we're gonna explore any and every option, but I'm telling you, in reading those 134 pages, and you really should, by the way.
Thanks a lot.
You really should. Yeah, it is, if they say it once, they say it 100 times, basically. You know, anything that we determine that is not within the scope of what we intend in this particular section, by the way, you have to repay with local tax dollars.
Exactly.
So, if you're not sure, and I mean sure,
No, I wouldn't do it unless.
yeah, the answer is no.
But also I'm saying
Y'all
is
two go to another training.
infrastructure, water lines.
thought the mayor-
I'm going to one next week.
internet lines,
Yeah.
telephone
About
lines,
this.
they're all very similar.
In that 134 pages, they're very specific, that they don't, in my mind, and I hope to be wrong, I hope it's one of the 10,000 times in my lifetime I've been wrong, but they seem very specific that we're giving you money for sewer, broadband expansion, water, that's it.
And when I
Don't
asked
care what else you want.
No, I understand that. I don't
Yeah.
think we should do it unless we get the appropriate approval.
Yeah.
But they also said, we want you to do one-time
I like that.
cost things.
I want everybody else to
Something
do
is
But
recurring.
they have to fit into those four broad
I understand.
categories. And right now, in my mind, which again, I hope it's one of the 10,000 times in my life I've been wrong, they're very, very, again, it's very specific, and I don't look for them to be as forgiving as they were with the CARES dollars.
No, I understand.
the comptroller,
You
when I
never
asked him the
know
question,
unless you ask.
Yeah, true.
when I asked the question about the law enforcement and EMA stuff, that's something they didn't cover, it didn't look like it at all.
Yeah.
That's why I just said that, because it's something that wasn't covered.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was any part of it, and I asked the question, they said, oh, yeah, it's covered, as long as you put future response to COVID, I'm like,
And I don't mean any,
it's just kind of,
I don't mean any disrespect to Comptroller Mumpower, who I know and who I've actually been down and had lunch with, but I don't accept that yet. I know that's what, I know
I'm
that's
just
what he
thinking it's gonna be,
believes.
I think it's gonna be larger than what's presented now.
Yeah.
And I do understand 100%.
Yeah.
That we don't wanna sit there and say, oh, we're gonna do this, then all of a sudden next year we're going, and we're gonna find 500,000 or $1 million to cover it.
Or 3 million.
But I think it's gonna be broader.
Yeah.
Also, would you please send out something to all the department heads, if you got a mass email? Tell everybody, thank you for coming all out today,
Yes, we'll do.
so I can go to church tomorrow.
Yeah. It worked out well. We certainly thank them for coming tonight, and I will send something out to them tomorrow, for sure.
And just to follow up on what he asked, again, I go back, the hopes are to find what our needs are, plug them into the grants that are out there, and then make a contact with different people, comptroller, whoever we can find out, to say, hey, is this workable? Will that work? I'd love to get a for sure from those people, and then bring it back to the full commission and say, hey, let the full commission vote on it and bless it, and then we go forth with it.
Two things. Do you have a number that we can work with, dollar amount?
As far as growth is concerned. Preliminary. and these are preliminary. If we had used a 90, we dropped back to a 95% collection rate last year, from a 97 to a 95. So when we were comparing, be sure I got my years right. When we were comparing 2020 to 2021, 2020 was at a 97% collection rate. 2021 was at only a 95% collection rate. So it artificially made the growth smaller than it otherwise would have been. Had they both been at 97%, you would have been looking in total at about 2.8 million for 2021. Now, that's in total. You remember, you got to break that out. This much goes to general fund, this much goes to general purpose school, on down the road, general debt service, so on. This year, based on the information that's been given to me by the property assessor that's come from the state, where they tell us what growth is, and I'll show you what I mean. I can give it to you. It's looking closer to, I think, about 2.6 million. In neither case, by the way, have we hit the 3.5% in neither year, regardless of the collection rate that we use. Have we hit the 3.5%? And our assessed value of property, by the way, is something else I meant to talk to you about. Your assessed value of property has increased by $1.5 billion. It increased from $4.5 billion to $6 billion, which means that 3.5% target is going to get harder and harder to hit. It's 3.5% of $6 billion is a lot farther away than 3.5% of $4.5 billion.
What percentage is that?
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
I know my neighbors are mad at me right now, and I didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I've had about 10 people mad at me.
Yeah. I realize.
I had one to come to my house today.
I know what y'all are going through. The mayor mentioned it last night. I know what y'all are going through. I've had it aimed at me. It's amazing how they don't have that same sentiment when they put the house up for sale.
But I guess what I was asking, our homework between now and next time, I just wanted to have a number that I could use to subtract from.
Property increased to 103,000.
So what are we looking at, 1.5?
Assessment increase.
You're looking at 2 point, if memory serves me correctly.
Our portion.
Our portion. Let me grab a file and give you the best number I can
Okay, so
use.
while he's doing that, still, I mean, whatever it raises to, as long as we don't change the property tax, we still should be okay. That's what we discussed the other day, correct?
Restate your question.
If we keep it at $2.51 or $2.58, we still good regardless of what the taxes, what the tax, what am I calling it? Appraisal does.
So
It will be adjusted. It's gonna go up.
they'll go from, they'll go from 251 to 190, $1.90, to make it where the taxpayer.
To make it balance
almost
out.
the same amount. There may be a few exceptions of people that really go way up there, because that's kind of an overview of bringing in the same amount of money.
I was saying that because I knew the press was here and I wanted to make sure that they kind of understood, because people have been calling all of us all day long, trying to understand, what is this going to do to my taxes? I had a call from Leadership Wilson today, and I'm like, it won't really bother you. It's really for your betterment, as long as the 24, I'm excluding me, 24 commissioners don't vote for a property tax increase, because I won't. So I'm definitely excluding myself on that. So
Your worst case scenario between the 2 years, and I believe this could be a worst case scenario between the 2 years of the general fund, is right at 3 million. Between the 2 years, growth that we didn't believe we were going to get because of COVID, that we just, we've already collected about 102% of what we budgeted, because we budgeted at a 95% collection rate. So we did no needs last year. So last year you didn't spend any growth money that you actually had. This year it's right at $1 million as it sits right now. And again, that's based on numbers that the state of Tennessee has given us. They have on here new real and new personal, and that's growth. Everything
We're looking
else,
at 1 million growth.
you're in the general fund. That's what you asked for, right?
Yeah, we're not worried about the school system. They'll get,
Not worried about
they
the
get their
school
portion.
system. The school system gets their portion. So you're looking, now that's at the low end. If I bump it up, that's at a 95% collection rate. If I bump it up to 97, it's gonna go up. I have not done that yet.
So our growth money that we have to play with is $1 million.
Between the 2 years, it's 3 million, because you had growth last year
We got 3 million.
that you didn't spend.
Aaron, I have a question.
Yes.
The pay raise for the employees, 2.5% is the.
Correct.
We're not gonna hit that.
Like you said, as we get more and more property, that's more and more difficult.
Correct.
Is
So,
there a
so,
way,
so
maybe the
hopefully
finance
some of that money we
committee or
get from
you
COVID
or
can be
the
used for some of
budget
the shares and
committee
wage
change
stuff
that
too.
3.5%
Well,
rather than 3.5%? It's like the tax rate is 2.51, and with the new property and the assessment, it's going to be 1.9, as the mayor said.
Yeah.
So
That's
maybe-
hypothetical.
I know hypothetical, it's probably going to be closer to 1.65 or something. But anyhow, is there a way we can bring that 3.5 down to a little lower so we'll give raises to the employees?
Yeah, Commissioner Gentry, there has to be, and I think.
I mean, we made that decision, right?
Yes, that
That's what I mean,
decision,
so we can change it.
yes, and my caution at the time was, at some point, and it's worked out wonderfully well. I mean, two out of the last 4 years, I believe 2 years in a row, if I'm mistaken, somebody will correct me, I'm sure. But 2 years in a row, we hit that 3.5%, or at least 2 out of 5.
Right.
We hit the 3.5%. 2 out of the last 5. But what we always have to caution ourselves again, you don't want to set it too low where it happens every year, because there's going to be a year where, you're going to need to hire, 8 sheriff's officers. You've got certain things that you need to do, and all of a sudden you back out what the raise costs, and you're sitting there with the tax increase staring you in the face that you didn't intend and don't want. And I realize we never intend or want a tax increase, but you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I understand that. But
Yeah.
we need to compete with the other counties.
I agree entirely. We need to, I agree entirely.
Because we need training, whether it be WEMA
Yes.
or the sheriff's department.
I agree entirely. We need
Train and go, we've lost more than.
a number that we can hit on a fairly regular basis. Not necessarily a number we're gonna hit every year, but a realistic number we can hit on a fairly regular basis.
Okay, when's our next meeting date?
24th will be the Board of
Monday.
Education. It's a Monday, 6 o'clock in here to hear the Board of Education budget.
And what about the 25th? Nothing,
I think they'll get done in one day as well, but we got 2 days if we need it, but, because we've advertised it, but
the
one
reason
day.
I asked about the 25th is I've got something that's come up, and I may not be able to be here on the 25th.
I think they should be able to get to in one night.
We usually do.
And just to go back to Mr. Gentry, you guys have still done well for your employees, and Aaron was saying 2 of those years you hit the 3.5%, and you set that because you said, hey, if it's 3.5%, I got enough money to pay my employees a raise and still take care of some needs. And I know you're wanting to modify it because of the
I don't necessarily
stuff.
want to modify it, but I think we need to maybe look at
Yeah.
it.
So you hit them 2 years with the 1.5%, and then 2 of those years out of the 5, you adjusted their pay by your pay plan, because y'all passed that too.
How much is a 1.5% rate? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How much is a 1.5% as far as on the budget?
My memory of what we did on the general fund the last time it happened, I want to say it was somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000, William. I should have been prepared for that question, but I will look at that and send you an email
Let's
tomorrow.
say 6.
6 is nice.
So-
Do you have like 1 penny is how much?
In fact, I do at this particular moment. Your penny rate at the new assessment is, again, I want y'all to understand something. This document has written in very large letters at the top, preliminary.
Right. I
This is
understand.
not final.
No, I
Okay,
understand.
so please understand that before I give you anything else. At a 95% collection rate, your penny is worth $583,331.
Hey, Sue,
83 what?
Sue, you have a question?
Well, I have a question and a comment. You said earlier, do your homework,
Yeah.
and that's what I've been doing. And we passed the budget at Ag Management, but we passed the needs.
But then I got to looking in the budget last year, in the budget book, it shows a bonus pay for the expo director of 12,000. But that money has been taken out now. It doesn't show in it now. And I called Joe, called Aaron, I called Joe, and I had Joe check to see if that money was paid out last year. And it was on February the 28th, the last day that the director left. And I said how much was paid out, and he said the 12,000 less the taxes and everything. So it was paid out $8,442 was paid to the prior director on February the 28th, after 8 months. But this year it's not in the budget, and it was approved. I know it was in there because we approved it through Ag Management, through budget, and through County Commission. Did I miss something there? I mean,
I didn't realize it wasn't in the budget, and if it's not in the budget, that's.
I haven't seen it in the budget.
That's 100% my fault. You're saying
Okay.
that the 12,000 is not even budgeted to be paid?
Well, it's not, it's showing in the budgeted 2021 in the book. but
Okay, so
not-
it's showing budgeted, but it hasn't been paid.
And I don't see it in there anywhere to be paid. And I could have overlooked it. It
Well,
could
let me
be
see
my
something.
blind side.
Let me look at what you're looking at. I'm sorry.
Well, I
Okay.
didn't bring it with me.
Mayor,
And
Okay.
I thought I had it this long
That's
ago,
fine.
and I didn't.
That's fine.
And I apologize for that.
No, that's fine.
My other question is, I know the school system has got their own growth money, and I know they got money from other locations coming in and everything. But we haven't been notified or told about the, maybe the extra building expense that may be there for the 2 new schools. Is that gonna affect us in any way?
I would say you would get that Monday.
Aaron, tell me the growth rate again.
Growth rate was 2.65%, if you're asking from a percentage standpoint. The total growth is $2,874,273.
2,800,000.
Yeah, and that's split up between the 5 or 6 different funds that receive property tax. So that's not 2.8 million just for the general fund.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you have anything else you need to share with us? Aaron, is there anything else you want to share before we
No, sir.
depart?
Do we need to address this that they're looking at? Do we need to address this that they're looking at?
He's looking at it.
We will, if it's not there, we will take care of it. I've got to find.
Take care of that general fund, I guess.
It was there last time. It'll be there this time because it's a status quo budget.
Yeah.
It has to be
Exactly.
part. And it was paid out the last time to charity, and she's making $57,000. I looked at it today. And we really looked at, Mr. Gentry, you remember, raised a lot of questions saying, hey, look, we don't really need to pay incentives out here and we don't pay anywhere else. And we went through that conversation. I actually had a conversation with Charity about just making it a flat 65. Then Charity left at that time and we hired Gail. So we had a conversation today that she's going to show me what her incentive is. But I probably will bring to you the next time that we meet, probably leveling that at 65. But I got to look at what everybody else is doing too out there to make them compatible. But and maybe going away from the incentive.
I'm for that. Take away the bonus and just
I'm
increase
sorry,
it.
it's right there.
Okay, need one more motion.
I got one more question.
Oh, it's under Ag Center.
It
That's
is,
why I didn't see it.
it is in there.
It's under
Yes, ma'am.
Ag Center. It was under Expo.
Is that,
It's all, if you see this 56.9,
Uh-huh.
this is all, and it goes straight to 57.9. This is not the best layout in the
No,
world.
it's not, because it says Ag Center at the top.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I got one more question. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
583, 334, is that the new assessment penny or is that the current assessment penny?
That is the new assessment.
New assessment penny.
534.
534, 334. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, Diane just pointed out, it's been given out 17, 18, 19, 20. So I'm all for just giving her the extra money and not doing a bonus, but we paid the bonus for last year.
And just so we go back and remember how this happened, we started out with Charity there the first year. We didn't know exactly what to expect. we wanted somebody not to go out there and sit and draw a salary. We wanted them to work. So we set the salary at the very beginning at 40,000 and said, then we made up a matrix to say you could earn 12 more thousand, and that would actually make you $52,000 employee. That first year went by and she had a lot on the books, but we hadn't had an event yet. And so we said, okay, do we give her incentive for events that she scheduled but not happen? So we just said, hey, let's just pay her 50 flat. So we paid her 50 flat that year. The next year, the pay plan came in and it pushed it to 52, still with the incentive out there. And so we went through that. And the problem we had the last couple of years with the incentive, which was not a bad deal, but it was there to make them, we wanted them to work, you know, and giving them incentive to do extra or do above and beyond. But we said, okay, if you got it 45 out of 52 weekends booked, then you earn that incentive. But then the question came up, so what's a weekend? Is that a Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Or is that just a Sunday, or a Saturday and Sunday? And so that's what made it tough. And so that's why we talked back, after Mr. Gentry talked about it, saying, hey, you know, why don't we just go a flat rate, what that comparable rate would be. And so that's how we got to where we were. So it's 52 the next year with the pay plan, then the next pay plan that came in made it 57. And they're at 57 right now.
Okay, is there anybody in the gallery that has anything they want to say? Yes.
One thing, I know that y'all have talked about and heard about raises, and I was wondering about, remember when during the meeting they talked about the frontline employees being able to use the COVID money, maybe look at potentially giving a one-time bonus to the frontline employees to be able to help offset of losing people to get us to the next pay study.
Pretty much like they've done to teachers.
Yeah, kind of like how
School system.
Because I know that the question was asked, what is considered frontline employees, and they start naming clerks, anybody. I mean, from teachers to people working, you know, receiving money for tags. I mean, it can cover abroad. Just maybe just an idea. I thought that crossed my mind.
They said everybody but the finance director.
Yeah, well, there's no, I wouldn't think, in seriousness,
Definitely, the mayor, he
I
makes a
would
lot of
think that
money.
anybody who was dealing directly with the public, like I'm thinking of the county clerk's office downstairs, who had several cases, you know, they're dealing directly with the public on a day-to-day basis. We actually had a sign out that said, basically, you can't come to the second floor without an appointment. You know, so we weren't dealing directly with the public that much up here where we are. Whereas the corrections officers are going in with the inmates every day.
But also, when we had the ice storm, people were upset about paychecks or something, so I mean.
Oh, I'm never gonna say that my people don't go above and beyond, and I wouldn't say that at all. But what I am saying is that, you know, our direct contact with the public was limited in compared to some.
And I think to your point, you know, it would be, at least at my level, we would like to say all employees receive that bonus. I mean, I think that makes it simple, because it's hard for me to look at the clerk that's selling tags and say, you know, you didn't get in there and knock that fire out, you know, or you didn't pick up that COVID patient in the back of the ambulance, which is definitely true, but they handle paperwork all the time. And so I think that piece is important, as long as it lasts, and I think they give that authority to us to be able to do.
Yeah, I remember they strongly encouraged that. That was one of the big bullet points.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question that's allowable. I mean, they basically make that one of the four main bullet points.
And I think that would help smooth anything out with all these people having all these extra requests. Just one quick thing, I know you said something about broadband, it's actually 100 million instead of 100,000.
Or means what I meant, I'm sorry.
I made it.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
No.
You can't do it. You can't do a second.
We are adjourned.